Hi, True Avatars, and welcome to your weekly queer video game podcast. This is episode 43, and I am your host, Zoe Wild. I am a transgender and bisexual woman, and my pronouns are she, her. This week was jam-packed for headlines, far, far busier than I was expecting for the middle of July. I was actually kind of expecting it to be like nothing this month. Like, absolutely nothing, especially after what June was. I was like, how can there be video game news in July? All of it was in June. But it turns out there was still a lot. We had The Last of Us Season 3 release date, kind of. Donkey Kong is getting a movie. Nintendo has cast Link and Zelda for their live-action Zelda movie. And spoiler alert, it's not T for T, unfortunately. Cyberpunk 2077 got a surprise content update. There's some icky AI-related news and so much more, including one more piece of news that hit this week, and it is very concerning. I know sometimes I can be a little overdramatic on the podcast, but I promise you, this is not overdramatic. This is not melodramatic. There's a very serious risk that all queer games might be removed from Steam, potentially all platforms, in the near future. You might be thinking, whoa, Zoe, that's extreme. All queer games are going to be removed from Steam and all platforms. Again, I know I embellish. I know I exaggerate. I know that, like, a lot of podcasts and a lot of content creators, like, they give you that clickbaity headline. And yes, we were extrapolating from some information we got this week, just a little bit. But I promise you that this news, it's the kind of news that you think like, oh, this will never happen. And then suddenly the slippery slope just gets really steep and then boom, like things are bad. So I do think it's something we should talk about. I think it's something super important that it's going to affect all gamers, not just queer gamers. So anyway, my alarm bells are ringing, basically. But before we get into all that doom and gloom, before we get into the news, and the doom and gloom thing I just said, like the news about Steam, that'll be in the second half of the episode. That'll be like our main segment of the episode. We're going to talk about what we've been playing. And then at the very end of the show, Queer Game of the Week is back. So first up, joining me is Lloyd Lloydster. Lloyd is an American trans man who streams a wide variety of games on Twitch. Lloyd's pronouns are he, him. How are you today, Lloyd?
Hello, I'm good. I dyed my hair this morning. I got my tea. I'm good.
With the compression from Google, I can't tell that you dyed your hair.
It's funny.
It just looks like the color's off.
I was noticing that too, but I don't know if like white behind me will do it, but it's a deep purple. It's purple. I bleached it, dyed it, and yeah, I don't know if anyone else can relate out there, but you're doing your own bleach and dye jobs can be a not exact science for something that usually requires some precision. So I'm more of the least precise of the school of thoughts for self-dyeing. But it came out pretty good, so I'm happy with it.
Well, I'm going to pretend that it looks really good because I'm not that it doesn't look really good, but I'm going to pretend that I can see it and that it looks really good and give you a compliment and say, nice hairdo.
Sounds good.
And my second guest is joining us for the first time ever. Please give a warm welcome to Cleo. Cleo is a trans woman, gamer, and friend of True Avatars regular Ekami. Cleo's pronouns are she, her. Hi, Cleo. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. I am a little tired, but I'm doing awesome. My hair is also somewhat purple.
Hey, that I can see.
Yeah. It was pink up at the ends, but that's all faded. But I'm pretty good.
That's great. Well, we're happy to have you on the show, and a bit of a doozy. I won't spoil what the headline was because we're going to save it for a future episode or then the segment. But originally we'd asked Cleo on because we actually had a listener request, our first one ever, and we'd been setting it up for like a month. Like, hey, this is the perfect day to come and do this like not low energy, but like low stakes episode. And then like 2 or 3 days ago, this news with Steam hit, and I'm just like, hey, how do you feel about coming into the battlegrounds of this like podcast episode? And you were pretty cool about coming on board with that, so I appreciate it.
You know, the first episode has always got to be a doozy, for at least in my eyes. If it's not a doozy, why?
It'd be boring if we just did the other topic.
Exactly. Like, where's the stakes? Where's the drama?
It'll make every other episode you're on so much more comfortable. Like, it'll be up from here.
I've hit my peak, and then the rest of it's like, oh, this is just nice and easy.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here.
Not downhill.
No, I promise you, the next the secret topic we're discussing, it's not any less exciting, and it's not a worse off topic. It's just something that's like more of a back burner kind of like when we have an episode or a week that like has less to talk about, is something we can bring in. I have a bunch of topics like that are like for rainy days. Lately though, those haven't been being used because shit just keeps hitting the fucking fan. So, but before we talk about all of this, before we talk about what we've been playing, I have a few quick favors to ask of you, true avatars. If you like this podcast, please leave a comment, rating, or review on your preferred podcast platform. Spotify has ratings and comments, while Apple has reviews. Engagement like comments, ratings, and reviews helps to grow the podcast, and a growing podcast means a happy podcast host who is forever happy and fulfilled that you enjoy listening to her show, which creates an infinite feedback loop of more podcast episodes, more growth, and more happiness. So please go leave a comment, rating, or review. Also, please follow True Avatars, a queer video game podcast on social media. There are accounts on Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at True Avatars. And you can also find the podcast on the official website, trueavatarspodcast.com, no spaces. And that's where the listener request was made, by the way. And remember, this is a weekly queer video game podcast, so check in every week. I aim to bring you news, interviews, and up-to-date discussions that are relevant to queer gamers, like they are this week, so you have a safe space to check in on the world of gaming from a 2S LGBTQIA+ lens. Okay, so, Cleo, let's start with you. What have you been playing?
Oh god, that's you think I was ready. It's been a lot of multiplayer games. Pal World has hit my computer again, Marvel Rivals, guilty pleasure Uma Musume, Pretty Derby, because horses aren't real and it's only horse girls. Those have been big ones. I'm a big rhythm gamer, so Dance of Fire and Ice. As well as an indie game called Many Nights a Whisper, which I thought was a very interesting experience.
Patapon, sorry to not talk about any of the games you just mentioned, but you said rhythm games. Patapon 1 and 2 Replay just came out. I was wondering if that's on your radar at all.
It is. It's on my list of things to pick up. I have too many games as it is. I still have to play Rift of the Necrodancer, which I'm staring at right now. Like, I could play that later, but it's on my list. And so is Patapon. I played it forever ago, and it's time I picked it back up.
There's a queer ally. I don't know if there's any queer people on the dev team, but the devs are queer allies. Like, they posted a pride message in their Discord, but there's a spiritual successor, I think from the same people who made Patapon originally, called Ratatan, which is not out yet. But anyway, that's been talked about on the podcast a little bit, so...
I'm excited to see more of that. I don't know if there have been any updates recently, but I definitely want to play that too.
Some other news we're not talking about this week because it's just too much is that Bit Summit is happening right now, and I think Ratatan is actually at Bit Summit right now. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think it is. Bit Summit is something we'll probably be talking about in August because there's just so much going on. But yeah, I am now blanking on all the games you just mentioned that you actually were playing, and I was like, hey, we can talk about these. Of all the games that you are playing right now, which one is your favorite?
I think right now my favorite has been Many Nights a Whisper. It only took me 2 hours to beat, but the experience has kind of stuck with me in a way that I didn't expect. It's a very short experience in which you're playing a character who is tasked to light fires and grant people's wishes. So over the course of the game, it's a very ritualistic thing. People grow their hair over the course of 10 years and offer it to you as a sacrifice. Like, I wish for this person to fall in love with me. There was, it comes as you kind of light things off in the distance. Someone wished for the moon to be gone, but the word moon is still there. So people know what it is, but it's not in the sky anymore. And it's, as you kind of get deeper in, the wishes get more intense and more, like, you have to really, at least for me, I thought about it a lot more. Like, do I really want to give this person eternal life? What would they do with that? Would that be, and it's an interesting dilemma and makes you, at least it made me think what my choices were. And you would reflect on it in the morning with like your mentor who cooks you dinner or like breakfast. And it's a really interesting experience.
What's the gameplay like?
It's not very complex. You are given a gauntlet. It's a slingshot. You aim, you kind of charge up a shot. It starts off very weak, but as you accept more wishes, you can power it up for longer. And over the course of like 7 nights, you eventually be able to hit farther and farther until the final night. You get one chance to light the big like chalice at the end, at the other side of like an ocean type thing. And whether you fail or succeed, the game ends. But it's kind of it's interesting to like practice, because every day you're getting more powerful. You can reach farther as you get achievements. It gives you a little bit more information about the world and the lore, and I think it's just like an interesting like 2 hour experience that really kind of stuck with me.
That's pretty cool. Sometimes it's those like couple-hour games that you sit with for like a couple days after the way they end.
Yeah, I can pull up the achievements. Oh, specifically the moon one. Where is it? Someone wished the moon away, but forgot to erase the noun. When anyone looks at the sky, they know the night is moonless, yet fail to conjure what the moon was. And there are, how many achievements are there? There are like 20 or 30 achievements, all with different wishes people have made, or like what the dreamer has done. The dreamer is the person you are playing as. And I think it's just interesting.
That's a lot of achievements for a 2-hour game. Were you able to get most of the achievements in one playthrough?
I got them all in one.
Wow,
30 out of 30. Every time you get like one of those torches, it gives you an achievement with a little bit more. So, yeah, it was a really short experience, and I think it was a really interesting time.
Lloyd, what have you been playing?
I have been playing Spirit City Lo-Fi Sessions. I've been playing quite a bit, and I didn't know much about it. I just knew that it was a productivity game that I think I'd seen someone stream, maybe someone that was recommended, and I only saw it a little bit. And I actually hadn't intended to stream it. I had intended to, just use it because, there's some neurodivergencies in my system, so to speak. So sometimes shit is just really hard to do. So any like productivity stuff that replaces me getting excited and making up a system and then either not finishing making the system or just not reaching implementation. Anyways, I digress. The actual gameplay, lovely. It has basically I don't know if canonically you're a witch or anything. There's not a lot of like story that really sets up why you're here in this house, but you can fully customize yourself. You can fully customize the decorations in your house, the little spirits that you unlock are kind of like pets. They kind of sit with you, and the whole point of the game is you set up tasks that you want to do. And it's a text box. You can type in whatever you want. You can set up a bunch of tasks, and you set up how long the timed work sessions are versus how long the breaks are and how many of them you want. And as you play the game and as you do more productivity sessions, is what I'm calling it, you unlock spirit levels. And as you get higher in levels, it unlocks the amount of spirits you could attract. And you attract the spirits with the different combinations of relaxing sounds you pick, the weather, the time of day you pick, and the activity you're doing. So if you get the magic combination for a spirit, a little thing will go off saying, "Oh, you're attracting one, sit tight," and it'll show up. Phenomenal. I love it. The music that's built into it, it's streamer friendly, so that was like another thing that took away some stress for me. But it's lovely because there's like something, it kind of fulfills the role of body doubling, if anyone's familiar with that. It's like the idea of sometimes I need to sit with someone, they could just be reading or they could just be on their phone, but if I'm in the same room as another person, I can do executive tasks that I couldn't do if I didn't have like a place and space by myself. So that's been a lovely game I've been playing.
So when you say it's for productivity, does that mean that like let's say you're at work, for example, and you're like, this game is like running in the background, and as you like, you work in real life, is that what when you say it's productivity, or do you mean like it's like the kind of game like where it gives you like little chores to do and it like gives you that little spark in your brain where like, okay, you've completed a task? Like that meme where someone's like, I like video games, they let me complete a task, start a task and finish it and check off that task. Forget what the anyway.
No, I know what you mean, like that dopamine hit of finishing the progress bar. Technically you could use it for both scenarios, but the last description you gave is the best because it doesn't suggest tasks. You enter what you want to get done. So like it could be as simple as, like brush your teeth, do dishes, like it could be anything. And if you're working on a specific project, you could be like, write another chapter of book, edit, make, so you completely like whatever you want, you can, whatever type of productivity you need. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like the honor system though, because it can't tell when you've brushed your teeth, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you could lie to it.
Oh yeah. But are you gonna lie to some really cute little spirits like this?
No.
I'm gonna spoil one spirit, but there's it's called a trash nuki. It's a tanuki with a little trash can lid on it. Would you lie to them?
No.
No.
Can't even lie to my pets.
That's the point.
Have you lied to the Trash Tanuki, Lloyd? Have you? Be honest.
No, the worst I have done, and I don't think it's the worst because it's whatever works for me, is I'll do more items than I know is possible. That way I have, like, a selection, kind of like a buffet. And, every couple of days, I'll just delete everything that's there, even if I haven't finished it. That's the worst I've done.
The
For
scandal.
me, I would get like 90% of them done, and then there was that last like 1 or 2 that are on the list. I would just keep like adding other tasks and ignoring the other 2 things. That's what I do in real life. I'm like, oh, I have this really important thing to do, but I have these 2 significantly less important things to do, and I'll go and do the less important things because they're easier and more fun than the like thing that's really stressing me out, like taxes. Like I left my taxes to like the second last day this year before the deadline.
Yep, I always make sure I have very easy things, reach things, medium things. So I have been known to add the couple of nice easy things that I needed to do, wouldn't have done, but it says it. I typed it there, sure, but it says that I have to do it now.
That's fair. Well, in terms of what I've been playing, I'm just going to quickly plug that I played Miska Tiny Tale for review for the podcast. And so that episode is now up. It's the bonus episode from the previous week. I don't think I wrote bonus in the title. I think I just wrote review and where you'd see the bonus word on another podcast, but it's episode 42.5. If anyone wants to go check that out, it's a 20-minute podcast. It's a very short review. It's spoiler free. And then, tomorrow, the day after this podcast comes out, so the podcast releases on July 21st. July 22nd, Miska Tiny Tale comes out on Nintendo Switch. On July 22nd. And then it also comes out on Nintendo Switch 2. It's just like backwards compatible. There isn't a Switch 2 edition. However, as you'll hear in my review, the Switch 1 version has kind of been unlocked in such a way that it has a resolution bump and a frame rate bump on the Switch 2 version, and it performs significantly better there. I did play it on Switch 2. It's great. If you want to hear any more, go listen to my review. But also this week, Donkey Kong Bananza came out, and this game is so much fun. So, basically we found out the Mario Odyssey team is the team that made this game. So basically they were playing around with voxel destruction in Mario Odyssey. And they were like very interested in this mechanic. And at one point they created a Goomba with boxing gloves. And that was the character that was like going around punching things. And at a certain point, I guess when they were making the Mario movie and they're doing the Donkey Kong theme park, someone came to them and said, hey, we need a Donkey Kong game, that isn't 2D and from retro. So, Donkey Kong Bananza was born. And of course it was very easy to put those 2 ideas together because Donkey Kong is this big muscular gorilla who can punch things, so, but it's the first time I've played a Donkey Kong game in my entire life that I didn't hate. Not to say that I think those games are bad. I just think they're very, very difficult. And so this game is when you first boot it up, you're going to get motion sickness, like straight up. You're just going to as soon as you're digging into the ground in this game, and destroying things and like finding items and gold, and like every 3 seconds you're gonna find something in the ground that's like gonna like that dopamine hit for you, which is why I like the game. In fact, there was one point when I was playing it last night and I couldn't find anything in this level because I'd cleaned it out almost, and I was like, there's like 1 banana left, I know it, like I'm gonna find it, and I wasn't getting that dopamine hit every like 20, like I went like a minute without the dopamine hit, and I was like, I hate this level, it sucks.
Worst level in any game.
Yeah, even though I literally like enjoy the entire level cleaning it out, I was just like, I can't find this 1 banana. But yeah, it's like a really charming game. I forget where I was going with my entire monologue there with it, but so the motion sickness though. So when I was played it at the Nintendo Switch 2 experience back in April. I think that episode is episode 31, if you want to hear my thoughts on that, on all those games that, some of those games aren't even out yet, still, like Dragon Drive, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land DLC. But anyway, I got to play Donkey Kong Bananza. It was one of the required games you played as you walked through. You played Mario Kart, you played Donkey Kong, and then they let you do free roam, and play whatever games you wanted. When I played Donkey Kong, the TV was like this close to my face. So, and I'm like, I know this is not a video podcast, but like, it was like a foot away from my face. Like, it was so close. So the first time you boot up the game and you're playing it, you've never experienced this game before, you're like, it's so disorienting with the rumble in your hands and the shake every time you punch something, and then the camera keeps like jarring or like, like moving around you really quickly, basically, as you're like navigating this like random underground tunnel. And then sometimes you can't even see yourself. You can't even see a silhouette of Donkey Kong because like the game like doesn't always render the way I feel like it should. Like, it should always be showing you. Sometimes I'll be underground and the camera will still be above ground. and I can't see what I'm doing. Other times it has no problem following me. And so because of all this like jarriness, like the first time I played it at this event and then the first time I booted it up on Thursday afternoon, I got motion sickness. So when I first noticed I was motion sick at home, I was like, really want to play this game. It's probably like 30, 40, 50 hours gameplay, like at minimum. So I really want to like sink my teeth into this. It looks so much fun. And I was kind of champing at the bit for it. So I decided to play it a little bit slower. And that did help. So it eased me into it. And now when I boot it up, I can play as weirdly or as wildly as I want. And I don't experience the motion sickness anymore. I'm not sure if I'm just acclimatized to it. However, I did find out one of those kind of clickbaity game guide websites, gameaid.co. They have a guide that suggests if you turn off sensitivity, and it's this feature called sensitivity. It's not camera specific. Gyro and camera vibration. If you turn all those features off in the game, in the settings, you will be less likely to experience motion sickness. So, thank you both for coming to my TED Talk.
We love it. We love the TED Talk. Did you try that? Did you find that it worked, or did you just kind of let it ride?
No, I let it ride just because I'm not experiencing the motion sickness anymore. And to be honest, when it works, the HD rumble and the gyro and every time the camera shakes when you punch something, it's so satisfying. HD rumble is one of those features that on Nintendo consoles, especially on the PlayStation, whenever there's an HD rumble, it's kind of like the rumble. It's not called that on PlayStation, but whenever you experience it, you notice it. And not in a bad way, but you're always oh, PlayStation's got this feature right now. It's so rare. On Nintendo, the HD rumble is just ingrained into everything that you do. You don't notice it. But just the way it works, and you probably notice it on PlayStation 2 is because there's a little speaker on the controller too that plays a sound effect. That would work super well in this Donkey Kong game if they had it. But every time you punch coins or you find gold and it goes that little cha-ching sound on screen, you feel that cha-ching in your hands, and it's just the dopamine. It helps with that dopamine hit. It's so good. And so I don't want to do anything that undercuts that. Sorry.
It sounds like it's trying to classically condition you, keep destroying the world, keep doing it.
Yeah. And you can even almost everything is breakable. Even there's water orbs that are floating around. You can punch half the orb and it only destroys half the water orb. It doesn't burst like a bubble. It's just voxel technology. So and voxels are just cube pixels. It's really hard to explain, but basically it's a way some games, I think Minecraft also uses voxels if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this is the anti-Minecraft, because not only are you mining, but you're destroying things instead of building most things. But anyway, you can also destroy boats in this game, that are just sitting on the water, and there's usually one of the Kongs sitting on the boat. And if you punch them off the boat, one of them's oh, I needed to go for a swim anyway. They're so nice to you. There's no negative reaction to you beating the crap out of them. Not that I try to. It's just I broke the boat and the guy went into the water and he was oh yeah, good time for a swim.
I needed it,
Yeah.
I don't own the game because I don't own a Switch 2, and it's on one of the things I'm going to get eventually. But I saw a clip of Donkey Kong attacking NPCs but high-fiving them and giving them a thumbs up. Is that the case? Is that for everybody?
So if you punch something, it's really a really quick animation. So I had to do a quadruple take to see if that was the case. But it seems if you try to punch something, you're high-fiving them. There is a baby eel that teleports you anywhere in the level. It's called teleporting. It's very cute. And this eel is adorable. And it's canonically a child. It even says oh, mom doesn't let me and my brothers and sisters go to different layers, but I can take you anywhere within this sub-layer. So let's say you're on the overworld, and then you're go down to that that first world you might have seen in all the demos where it kind of looks tropical. And so this little eel kind of just says in this cute little baby voice, I can go anywhere in this level, but mom doesn't let me go out here. She doesn't let us go far. And it's so cute. And so you walk by him at some point, and I was can you punch him? I felt guilty, but I was can you punch him? What happens, right? Cause some things you punch them, there's another thing that if you punch it, it breaks and it comes back together. It's another character. It's a rock. So if you punch the eel, he just high fives you. Don't worry, you can't. And I know I'm a sick fuck for punching the baby eel.
Yeah, you're
but I was very curious to see what happened.
It's a natural progression. You've been punching everything,
Well, it's very much the definition of the expression if I forget what the expression is. Like, if everything is a nail, you're a hammer. If you're a hammer, everything is a nail. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this game is very much like you interact with the world by breaking everything, literally everything. Like, you might as well punch it and see what happens. So, but there were three baby puzzle pieces I did not punch. So, like, this mom puzzle piece is missing 3 chunks out of her, and she's like this rock thing. So you can punch her and she breaks. But she's like, oh, my children are missing. They're like somewhere around. If you bring them to me, I'll reward you. So you have to like break up this room, and then you find these little puzzle pieces. And it's kind of like in other games where you've got to get, like in Kirby in the Forgotten Land, when you find the duckies, they follow you. Well, in Kirby, the duckies, just as soon as you find them, they follow you anywhere in the level. Whereas these little guys, they only follow you for a few steps. So you have to go slowly and make sure they're following you. But they're so cute. I started talking to them like they were my dog. It's like, it's okay, come here, it's okay. All right, we're gonna go a little bit further now. Thankfully, you don't have to take them very far, but they're so cute. And then when they bring them back to mom, they come back as part of mom, as part of the whole puzzle piece. It's very, very, very sweet. So, anyway, I've been rambling about Donkey Kong for a while. It's the only time I'm gonna get to talk about it on the show. So, I originally, before when we were gonna do the other segment, before this all happened, I was gonna be like, let's dedicate like a 25-minute like deep dive into what I've been playing with Donkey Kong, but I've only actually had like 5 hours with the game. So. Does anyone have any questions about it before I move on? Or
before we move on, I actually did have a question. You mentioned like overworld and sublayers is like the whole conceit. You're kind of digging down. I genuinely don't know much about the game other than you punch things. Really?
Yes. You are moving towards the planet's core.
Okay.
Supposedly that's where the bad guy has gone, but also you find out that if you reach the planet's core, whoever gets to the planet's core gets 1 wish. And so, Donkey Kong's wish is bananas, and Pauline, like child version of Pauline, who is accompanying you as well, who has this like singing mechanic that helps you interact with the world as well. It's the only thing that's not breaking things, although her voice does break things, but they're like, it's like red tape, basically, that's all over everything. She breaks down the red tape, which is actually purple in the game. But anyway, her wish is to get back to the surface, because when this all went down, like, these bad guys showed up and, like, they basically caved in Donkey Kong's mine. And so at that point, too, I guess Pauline was at the surface and she got sent down as well. So, you know, this monkey comes out of nowhere and says, like, well, you don't want to go back up to get to the surface, you want to go down. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, what? Like, girl, yeah, you question him, because, like, that does not make any sense.
Well, what do you mean, go down? Just get ladders? Are they a thing?
No. It's climbing, though. Thankfully, the climbing doesn't have, like, a stamina bar like Legend of Zelda. You can just climb it. Pretty much anything except certain surfaces that you slide down, but that's because the game doesn't want you going up to where it is. Like, they want you to figure out the puzzle towards it.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
All right, let's jump into the news. So, this first headline here, speaking of Donkey Kong, Nintendo and Universal Studios have officially filed a copyright for a Donkey Kong movie, which I'm sure people expected was coming because Donkey Kong felt like the second main character of the Mario movie. It makes sense that you get Seth Rogen to voice Donkey Kong. Of course, there's going to be a spin-off. But aside from there being like literally a copyright page on the US Copyright Office website, that's all we know, is that there's an untitled Donkey Kong movie in the works, and that Nintendo and Universal are the ones on it. So because it's Universal, and because DK was in the Mario movie, I have to assume that this movie is from Illumination, who does the Minions, who did the Mario movie. I have to assume that Seth Rogen is going to voice Donkey Kong in this movie, because he previously voiced Donkey Kong in the Mario movie. And also, the only release date that Illumination currently has on its schedule that doesn't have a movie attached to it. Like, I think they've got Shrek 5 coming next year, and then there's just one other undated, untitled movie on June 30th, 2027. I have to assume that Donkey Kong is coming then, unless it's coming even later. But given that it's shown up at the Copyright Office, I have to imagine maybe they're animating it in conjunction with the Mario sequel. So what this means, though, is that this movie will come out a year after Super Mario World, which is the Mario 2 movie, and then 2 months after the Legend of Zelda movie.
Excellent. Yeah, it seems like the natural progression for what's next. I'm not sure what I expect to see from it, but it sounds like by then they're going to have the formula kind of ironed out for Mario and Mario adjacent movies.
I'm curious what they're going to do with it in terms of like the story and how it's going to look. Is it going to be the same? Are they going to, with Spider-Verse being as big as a hit as it is and like Puss in Boots, are they going to try and shift animation to be similar to that? I'm just curious what they're going to do in that way on top of the story and everything else.
Yeah, I don't think Illumination has ever done like an animation style change. Because I don't think Illumination did the Puss in Boots sequel.
No, they didn't, but I'm curious if those kind of shift, like even with K-pop Demon Hunters in that kind of more, they're animating on different frames. I wonder if they're going to try and imitate that in a new, like try and follow the trend.
Well, I think Nintendo dictates a lot of what is done with their movies. I think they have more control than, say, like Disney has over... actually, that's a bad example. Disney has over Spider-Man, but, like, to be honest, I can't think of a very... no, I can't think of a good example. But, like, any time that, like, a license has been purchased to make a movie, I know that for Detective Pikachu, the Pokemon Company was very heavily involved in that. I know Nintendo was very heavily involved in the Mario movie. And I even did read one of the writers who did the original draft of that movie left because apparently Nintendo was way too involved with the revisions. That might be hearsay. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like I remember reading around that time that like the writer even acknowledged that movie had no story. And so, but because this movie comes out 2 months after the Zelda movie, we also have some Zelda news because that movie is fast approaching. I mean, I know it's 2 years away, but still 2 years is not that much time in terms of movie production. So the lead actors for the Legend of Zelda movie have been cast. And like I said before, it's unfortunately not T for T Zelda like we hoped, where we hoped Hunter Schafer was going to play Zelda, and the actor's name who plays... Oh my god, I can't remember the character's name either, but from One Piece, the kid from One Piece, the trans man in that movie, in that show, the live action One Piece. I was hoping that he would play Link and she would play Zelda. Unfortunately, they've gone with my other hope is two unknowns, or relative unknowns in this case, because they've been in a few things, but for the most part, people don't know who they are, so it means Nintendo can kind of mold them in whatever way they like, and so you don't have preconceived notions going into the movie about who these actors are as these characters. So, Zelda is going to be played by Bo Bragison, and so she was most recently in a Disney Plus show called Renegade Nell, which I've never heard of. I have Disney Plus, not for much longer, but and they are constantly advertising new shows in the like scrolling banner at the top, and I've literally never seen Renegade Nell there once. Maybe I'm just not in the demographic and it knows that, I don't know. And so Link is going to be played by Benjamin Evan Ainsworth, and he was a child star at the time when he was in this show. He played he was in The Haunting of Bly Manor. Who he played, actually, I don't know. I didn't look that up because I've never seen it. I think Akame's seen it though, and she liked it. So, are you guys disappointed that there won't be T for T Zelda?
No, I don't think I am. I think it would have been great to see T for T Zelda, but I'm glad they went with relative unknowns. The only reason I recognize Bo Bragison's name is because she was the motion capture for young Luna in Kingslave, Final Fantasy 15.
Oh.
That seems like a deep cut. I'm impressed that you know that.
I know really weird information that comes out of nowhere, and that's one of them.
Sorry, lady, go ahead.
No, yeah, I would have been surprised. Not to say that, I wouldn't have wanted T for T Zelda, but I would have been surprised. And I'm in the same boat with you that Relative Unknowns is really good because I feel like we're in an era where they keep tapping the same like 10, 15 actors for a lot of, especially video game adaptations. So it's nice to see. It'll be good to see. I'm glad we're seeing a little bit more variety out there.
Yeah, I'm hearing rumors that instead of like casting people based on talent or like agents who know each other and like star power, it's based on Instagram followers. So people who are very popular on social media who are also professional. And that's not to say they're going to go find random content creators and social media personalities and cast them. But like certain actors are getting cast over others because they have a bigger social media presence, because they have more followers. And people and studios think that those followers will translate to moviegoers, to ticket sales, to more money, basically.
Wow. And that... it's unreasonable, but completely believable, because I remember maybe like 5 years ago, we started seeing artists, like musicians, were being forced to do like either TikTok trends or promote, and you'd get this like passive aggressive anti-marketing that they would do for themselves because they're what's it called when you get signed with a label. Their label would be like, yeah, you need to, you know, get X amount of interacts on this, and you would see, I don't know if either of you saw these, but these trends where it's like, if I don't get 1,000 likes, I don't get 10,000 likes on this, we can't release this single. And it's like, I'm not surprised to hear the shift for actors, but it's another like hoop. Like, if they have a skill set, and the skill set isn't social media management.
Yeah. And I didn't check to see on social media what these actors like have for social media presence, and if that was part of the reason why they were cast. But the fact that they went for relative unknowns, despite Instagram following, or in spite of it, does fill me with some confidence. And I think I know I've seen some people harassing both these actors and also Hunter Schafer because of the way the casting went down. And honestly, as much as I would have loved to see Hunter Schafer in the movie, and I'm disappointed too, like, don't get me wrong, like I'm very sad they're not getting T for T Zelda, but also like these two actors, you know, like Link and Zelda look very different in each game. Link less so than Zelda, but like, you know, like a little bit of makeup and a little bit of wardrobe. And I think the bigger concern I have for the guy playing Link is that my ex actually pointed out that he's got a very square jaw and Link has a very pointy jaw normally. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I can see him blonde, but he's got the square jaw. Is he gonna like look like Link? Like, that's my bigger concern than his acting ability, because I'm sure he can, like, they can do whatever they want with Link especially. But for Zelda, I really do hope they go with the bookworm, explorer, you know, budding queen version from Tears of the Kingdom, because that's my favorite interpretation of Zelda. I think she's such a badass. I think she's so cool. And it's the first time I've ever been like, I see why people like Zelda now, because before she's just kind of like the damsel in distress, like Princess Peach. And so giving her that agency where she's like this like mother to Hyrule, she's an explorer, you know, she's got Link by the throat too a little bit, you know, she's like, hey, we're and then anyway, so I'm excited to see where they go with this, and I'm excited to see who these relative unknowns are and how they do with the role too. So
I want to know.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I want to know what Benjamin's attack sound. How does he sound when he's swinging his sword? Because it's so distinct. I need my say it. Like, I need to know. That's all. That's it. That's all I gotta hear, and then I'll know if I'm sold or not based on that.
I'm just trying to do all the Link sounds from Tears of the Kingdom. I do think the ha when Link, I do the triple jump in Smash Bros. That's my Link voice, the sound of Link in my head. And that's my favorite thing to do in Smash. It's like get people caught in the sword helicopter thing that he does, and just like watch people like fling them off this. Anyway, we're in the weeds here. All that is to say is that the Zelda movies cast, now I'm very curious who they're going to get for Ganondorf, and I guess Impa. Those are the two other big characters they're going to cast, and then everyone else is kind of like maybe Tingle will be in it, but like I feel like Tingle's too creepy for like what they could do with him in a movie.
A sequel. That's sequel. Tingle's going to be the big bad in the sequel. Don't ask questions. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
All right, we do have to move on though. The Last of Us Season 3 has a release date, has a release year. So Casey Bloys, the head honcho at HBO, says that the third season of The Last of Us TV show is planned for 2027. So more content planned for 2027, video game adaptations with queer vibes, maybe. Although Donkey Kong, I doubt will have queer vibes. But anyway, this lines up kind of with the time between seasons 1 and 2. It's like 2 years between seasons 2 and 3. I would hope at this point that, like, because they're basing these stories off a game, that we'll be able to get them out just a little bit faster, because 2 years is a little bit long. I'm impatient, though. I want them to take as much time as they need. Like, I don't want to rush people. I just know that they're... Once upon a time, less than 5 years ago, seasons were annual, and now they are not. Maybe it was a little more than 5 years ago, but it's still, like... In my adult life, I know, like... At one point, Game of Thrones was annual, and then suddenly it was every 2 years, and then you waited 2 years for that shitty-ass final season. Anyway...
Game of Thrones did do irreparable damage to the game, like in all aspects. So I agree.
Cleo, we haven't talked before about much, but because I don't know this about you, have you played The Last of Us games, and have you watched the show?
I haven't watched the show, but I have played the games, both the first and the second. I don't really... I'm surprised it would take 2 years for them to kind of... I know where season 2 ends, and I'm surprised they're kind of not getting it out sooner, which feels to me, because I think they tease it at the end, where it's like, Seattle, day one, and like, wait, what? Hold on. We're going back? And people are I'm not sure why it would take so long.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I know I reported it, was it last week or the week before? I know that like Neil Druckmann and a couple other people who actually worked at Naughty Dog are no longer working on the show. It's possible it's going to take more time because even if they had a rhythm going and it was going to take, like, let's say, a year and a half this time, maybe Craig Mazin, who's now the only showrunner on it, is now like, now that he's on his own, it's a little bit more work. It takes a little bit more time, but we'll see.
Yeah. I am excited to see. I think the second half of The Last of Us Part 2 is probably one of my favorites in that like series of games. And I do hope they kind of give it the room to breathe, especially with... Do we care about spoilers?
Yeah, I think so, just because
that's
like,
fine.
Only because it's relatively recent, but also I do think anyone who might be like not in the games yet or watching, especially because the show's still airing, those surprises are super. I mean, the zeitgeist has probably spoiled it for a lot of people, but I think those spoilers are like, the reason I like the game is because I didn't know that a lot of this stuff happened. Yeah,
the switch up going into the second half of that game was really just like, oh wait, oh, and it was a really interesting like departure from Ellie and just seeing like, oh, we're on the other side of this conflict.
Yeah. Lloyd, any thoughts before we move on?
No, I've seen season 1, played the first game. Game 2 was like, okay, I'll watch the other season when I play the game, and it's time's passed. Season 2's done. Have I started the second game? No. So I'm hoping I can get back into this franchise. I do like it. So, and another thing I was thinking of is like, when COVID, when like the pandemic and shutdown happened, that interrupted and a lot of flows and like production. And, you know, I think there was like another strike somewhere in the recent history.
Multiple strikes. Yeah.
And so even if things are like, quote, back to normal, maybe, you know, they've realized they can get away with slowing things down and, you know, kind of like pacing that we've seen, like how the cinemas, how the movie theaters reacted to things opening back up again. And so maybe there's a lot of reasons why it could be taking that long.
Yeah. Okay, we have one more video game adaptation headline. Assassin's Creed. Netflix is making their Assassin's Creed TV show finally. I think back in 2020 they said like it was like being developed. And TV development is more like putting pen to paper and figuring out logistics and like what do you want to do with the story. And then generally script writing is like the last stage of development, whereas in video game development is like film production, where like you're actually like making the thing instead of preparing to make the thing, just for clarity. But yeah, so Netflix has been working on this show for 5 years, trying to get it developed, and they are now moving forward. There's no release date, there's no filming date yet, but they have hired showrunners. So Roberto Patino, who worked on Westworld, and David Weiner, who worked on Halo Season 2. For me, those are red flags. For other people, they might be green flags, depending on what you thought of those shows. I personally couldn't stand Westworld, and I didn't watch Halo Season 2, but I've heard nothing but awful things about it from diehard Halo fans, admittedly. So maybe that's not the best gauge. But anyway, there's a logline now for the show as well. Assassin's Creed is centered on the secret war between two shadowy factions, one set on determining mankind's future through control and manipulation, while the other fights to preserve free will. The series follows its characters across pivotal historical events as they battle to shape humanity's destiny. And that is the vague description of every single Assassin's Creed game, so that is a nothing logline. But it's good to know that at least it's going to be faithful to the game concept. And this is apparently going to have nothing to do with the Michael Fassbender movie. That's not confirmed, but if I had to guess, that would be in the headline if it was so.
Yeah, I think Assassin's... Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
No, you first. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I think Assassin's Creed has had like a couple like B-level movie attempts, if not... I'm thinking at least 2 that I can think of. And I hope they get it this time. I if any franchise has the like social capital to keep trying, I think this one would have it. Hopefully, you know, this time's the charm, and you know, Netflix has plenty of money. This is Netflix, right? Is that what? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Netflix.
Plenty of money. This isn't their first video game adaptation. This isn't even going to be their second or their third potentially successful one. So hopefully they've got their proverbial shit together. I can't speak to Westworld or Halo Season 2, so I'll take Zoe's recommendation on that, or lack of.
Many people disagree with me on Westworld.
I never got into Westworld, or I tried to watch Halo, but It turned me off immediately, and I've never gone back to it, nor will I. It felt like such a slap in the face. This is also the one that's been in the making for like 5 years, this Assassin's Creed show, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you think they may have... I mean, I guess with the newest one out, part of me feels like they've missed the moment, but I don't know. I'm not sure. It feels like they had them. There was a time where this would have been amazing, and this would have been like, oh, this is the best. I love it. I don't think that's now.
I mean, I like see where you're coming from, but also like, when was the last new Fallout game? And that show has like revitalized the entire franchise.
That's true. I guess it depends how they do it and what it looks like, because the Fallout shows, I kind of great. I kind of love it.
That's a really good way to look at it too, because right, like, is it better to release it during a dead time where there's nothing else, you know, so you're getting the most out of all of your capital that you're putting into the IP. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. At first I was with you, Cleo. I was like, oh yeah, but then when this right point, I was like, oh yeah.
Well, to even help this argument further, Detective Pikachu struck while the iron was hot, and that movie was absolute trash. Like, I love it, but that's not because it's good. It's because I'm a Pokemon fan and a huge slut, and I watch and consume anything with Pikachu on it. So,
I mean, same.
I'm only laughing so hard because I think the other day, Zoe, you were like, I gotta swear less.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, yeah, I'm like back and forth on swearing in the podcast, because to keep queer in the name of the podcast and use words like gay, queer, LGBT, like, I have to like make the podcast explicit. So the podcast is going to be explicit. I might as well say fuck. But alternatively, whether it's explicit or not, if I say fuck, there's never any chance that we can monetize this podcast. Not that I want to monetize it, but it'd be nice if I could have some passive income because I spend so much time on it. Again, I do this out of the love of the game. You know, like, I'm not here to make money. But like, and then I'm like, well, if we're eventually going to do a video podcast, it's going to go on YouTube, and I don't want to go through and like bleep everything. So maybe I should just like get better at not swearing. And every time there's an opportunity, my brain goes, like, my brain will like clock ableist terms, like the like C word, like crazy, and like the S word, like stupid. Sorry for using them now, but my brain will clock those, and I'll stop myself from using them. But if the fuck word comes up, like, I see, I just did it again. Like, instead of saying the F word, I said fuck. I just said fuck word. Like, I'm not even trying. I'm just a potty mouth. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up, Lloyd, because like, maybe this is the call out I need to be like, okay, I actually need to stop swearing. If the podcast ever has a hope of like, because then maybe one day I can just like quietly not make it explicit, and then just like, but also we can talk about sexually explicit stuff sometimes. And then like, even though I personally disagree, I think youth should be able to hear about sex. I know that's not a popular opinion coming from a trans woman right now, but also like, we allow violence in PG stuff, but sex is like restricted to to kids, and then suddenly like kids have like violence is okay but sex is taboo relationship with things. And I do think there's like some correlation between like those two things bleeding over and crossing over, where like people might be more likely, and I have no basis in fact on this, it's just like a theory, but like maybe people are more likely to use violence to get something that's taboo, like sex. Anyway, that's been some meta discussion for the podcast. But anyway, we do have to move on to some like sad news here. Steam games with AI have increased by 800% this year. So in a previous episode, I mentioned that certain games on Steam are disclosing their use of generative AI. So it turns out that number of games that are doing this have increased by 800% in the last year alone. I don't know why I like grunted really deeply there. I'm so sorry. So it was 1,000 games before this year, to 8,000 games in the last year, which is 7%, by the way. 8,000 games is 7% of the entire games library on Steam. And it's 20% of games released in the last year. This comes from Video Games Chronicle, by the way, and I'm quoting here. It's worth noting that although Steam requires games that use generative AI in their development to disclose the use, such disclosures are voluntary. So the actual number of games created using Gen AI, which is generative AI's shorthand, is likely higher than the 8,000 figure, which is also effing bleak.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't mean to laugh at you. I'm sorry. I was just like, oh yeah, Cleo's gonna have some insight. Looks like she's, ramping up. And then it's just like everything we're feeling. I'm,
just deflating.
but
Well, in the interest of time, then let's deflate even more here. We've talked a lot about layoffs, a lot about the layoffs. I should say at Microsoft in the last 10 seconds, because that's how often it feels like they have layoffs. But King is one of the companies that Microsoft bought when they bought Activision Blizzard. It's famously known as Activision Blizzard King, and King famously makes Candy Crush, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. It's like the phone game. So anyway, 200 staff were laid off from King recently, and the staff have reportedly discovered that before they were laid off, they were unknowingly training an AI model that has now taken their jobs.
Boo hiss.
And on top of that, an internal survey suggests, was leaked that company morale has tanked. And this comes from mobilegamer.biz. They broke this story.
I bet. Jeez.
Yeah, how does morale not tank? How do you spin that to be like, oh, we're doing good. But sorry. Oops.
Right, anyone who's still working there, how do you not think, okay, I wasn't part of that wave, but what's to say that I'm not training the AI model, it's going to replace me?
What's next?
Exactly. And I'm laughing not out of humor, but out of just exasperation about it all, because these last two stories, we knew this was going to happen. We've revisited this several times on the podcast. Unfortunately, it's where things are going. In the past, I couldn't tell you the number. I don't have Zoe's memory, which podcast episode it was, but I arbitrarily said we had maybe a year before I thought we were going to see AI and everything. Not everything, but a little less, oh no, there's AI here, and oh yeah, this was made with AI, either being proud about it or just it being part of just every process. And seeing that those numbers and this story, yeah.
I think that might have been either episode 36 or episode 37. I remember you saying that, though. I do remember you saying that, and that's not the kind of line that I encourage listeners to go back and listen to the whole episode for context, because you gave all the context, but well, in the interest of time, plus we're going to have lots of more bleak news later with this discussion for our segment. So let's move on to happier news. Dragon Drive, which is another one of the games I got to play at the Switch 2 experience. This is the wheelchair basketball game. It's getting a demo. Although it's one of those monkey's paw curls moments, because it's a time demo and the times are absurdly weird and random. So anyway, the game is coming out August 14th, and again, the title of the game is Dragon Drive. But just before it comes out, on August 9th and August 10th, Nintendo is hosting a demo for everyone, and by everyone, I mean everyone who pays for Nintendo Switch Online is going to be able to try the game early. It must be played during Nintendo's predetermined windows, and even though this is they're calling it a global jam, is what they're calling it, is the name of the event. Nintendo, I couldn't actually find a master list from Nintendo confirming that it's in all regions, and also which times are in which regions, because every time I saw a time zone conversion, it did not match up with with the Pacific time zones, which are the only official ones I could find from Nintendo. So it was if it's from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., Pacific on August 9th, which is horrible times, 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. I was okay, that must be because Japan is getting it at a certain time, right? And so, that's the Japan's time, but also people in America can access it, and Canada as well, can access it if they want. But then the Eastern time zone converted to 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I was what? That doesn't, that's even worse. That doesn't make sense either. It's not anyway. So, and then there was a different website that converted it to Eastern time, and it was different hours. So anyway, I couldn't find any confirmed times. So basically, it's August 9th from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., all in Pacific time zone, by the way. August 9th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific, which is better. And then August 10th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., which is admittedly not great, although that might be a weekend. But the 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. is unjustifiable. I don't know why that's a thing. Yeah, so if this makes no sense to you, I'm sorry I don't have more information. This is literally, I spent 20 minutes on this, and then I was I gotta move on to other news stories. I can't spend forever on this. But yeah, the game looks great. I played it. It's really fun. It's very tiring because you're using the mouse mode of with the controllers to basically control a wheelchair, the way you would in real life. So it's It's exhausting.
Huh.
To be clear, I've only ridden in a wheelchair once, and I did find it tiring. I think I was a kid, but from what I remembered, this is felt very familiar, similar rather, not familiar, similar to what that felt like. And it's it's an upper body workout. I've only played the demo for 10 minutes, and by the end I was yeah, I'm good. My arms are rubber now. So Are either of you gonna? I guess Cleo, you don't have a Switch 2, and I think Lloyd, you're a PlayStation kid. So I'm literally talking to like a void right now of people who would not play this.
If I see my friend who has a Switch 2, I will ask him to let me play it.
Oh yeah, if I had
I will be like,
if I had the disposable income to get all game systems all time, Switch 2, I have interest, but with uncertainty for the future, I'm like, I'm not gonna make any big investments right now.
all my disposable incomes goes to tattoos. So
it's probably not to knock a video game things, but also like supporting Nintendo in general. Just let's say I think tattoos are also a good investment. I was gonna say that's better than video games, but I'm like, wait, this is a video game podcast. I can't knock video games. People like the video games who listen to this anyway. We have one final news story here. More Cyberpunk 2077 content just got released, actually. So after CD Projekt Red said they were done, they're pull us back in. So they've released a surprise update and includes some new content. This is update 2.3. It's on PS5, Xbox Series, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC. They did not release this update for PS4 or Xbox One. I think that's because the DLC isn't even on those consoles either. In fact, those versions of the game might still be delisted. I'm not sure if they ever got reinstated or patched. I just know that the next gen or current gen now consoles were eventually fixed. But anyway, this update comes with new side jobs, new vehicles, which are unlockable through the new side jobs. There's a new photo mode features, lots of gameplay updates and patches, things like that, just like little bug fixes. And now there's VRR support on PS5 and Xbox Series to go along with the Nintendo Switch 2 version, which I think must have been developed for Nintendo Switch 2, but then I think Nintendo just deleted the VRR feature because they realized not all TVs support it and they want their console to be as like family friendly as possible. Anyway, point being is like they went to all the trouble of making VRR support for the Switch 2 version, so I assume they're just like, hey, let's put this on the other consoles too. And yeah, the update is available now. So that's our news stories. We're going to take a short break, and after this musical interlude, we'll be back to talk about this Steam queer game controversy. So welcome back to Avatars, and we're going to jump into what is kind of a darker topic. This is the content warning that I want to bring up. We're going to be discussing sexual-related media, including consensual sex, sexual assault, child sex abuse, queer persecution, the Trump administration, and its fascist policies, and Project 2025. All insofar as it relates to this topic. And you're probably thinking, what do video games have to do with any of this? And we're going to get into that. Like, don't worry. Like, there's a very clear delineation in this slippery slope we're going to be talking about. Also, I'm aware that to some listeners, the title of this podcast is clickbaity. The topic feels very Chicken Little, the sky is falling doomer nonsense. But I really wouldn't be discussing this, honestly wouldn't be discussing this if it wasn't a real possibility. I like to consider myself more of a down-to-earth, honest content creator. Like, I don't do stuff just for the attention. If I did, I'm sure I could get much more listeners and much more people. Like, I think if I really wanted attention, I wouldn't have created a video game podcast, like a queer video game podcast. Anyway, point being is that I do think this is something we could see actually happen in the near future, possibly sooner than we think. And if you are listening to this segment at any point and you feel yourself reeling or you're feeling very low, please take a break. Take deep breaths, ground yourself, or go do something else, go do something else that will hopefully make you feel better. Come back when or if you're ready. It's a heavy topic. It's kind of bleak. And it's also, again, something that might be happening. So like if you're like me and you just start writing these notes and you're like, oh shit, like this is not good. Just like turn off the podcast, and I mean this in the nicest way is like, sometimes I do this myself. I have to bury your head in the sand, like tune it out. Because, part of survival is also like keeping your head above water and doing whatever you need to do to keep your head above water. Anyway, that is my monologue about that. That's the content warning. And I do want to shout out our Girl Gamer subreddit for leading me to this and letting us all know, to be honest, that subreddit is much more supportive than I realized than even some of the trans subreddits on Reddit. So, but anyway, shout out to our Girl Gamers because you've been great. There was one particular trans subreddit that was also very supportive when I talked about the podcast. I can't remember which one it was. That's not to knock all the trans subreddits, but there's a couple there that are like very much like, if you don't pass, we hate you. Anyway. Okay. So let's actually get into the topic, because you're probably wondering, like, what exactly? I haven't even really properly introduced the topic yet. So, in the onboarding section of Steam's documentation for developers and publishers, they have a list of rules and guidelines. Basically, a do's and don'ts for releasing your games on the platform, and a lot of it is common sense and etiquette. And in this section is a 15-point list of what you shouldn't publish on Steam. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but some examples here. So point 1 is hate speech, i.e. Speech that promotes hatred, violence, or discrimination against groups, and I'm quoting from the actual list here, of people based on ethnicity, religion, gender, age, disability, or sexual orientation. 3, adult content that isn't appropriately labeled and age-gated. 10, applications that fraudulently attempt to... I think they actually have a typo here, but anyway, the fraudulently attempt to gather sensitive information such as Steam credentials or financial data, e.g. credit card information. And point number 15, the final point, which I'm assuming was just recently added, and this list previously existed as 14 points, although I'm not sure how new this list is. But anyway, point 15 reads as follows. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks, or internet network providers. In particular, certain kinds of adult-only content. So, that's a mouthful. But basically what it means is, don't publish any games that have adult-only content that might piss off Visa and Mastercard. Those are the payment providers they're talking about, because those ones are the ones that are global. It's possible some other American ones are in there too, but I think Visa and Mastercard are probably at the forefront of this because they're massive companies and they've probably kowtowed to Trump before, if they haven't already, like if they're not currently doing it still. So, SteamDB, a website that tracks metadata for games, and also Cleo, Lloyd, feel free to jump in at any point while I'm talking to like give a context or discuss what I've written and discuss what I've said from the show notes. But I'm just going to kind of like set this up a little bit. So SteamDB, I'm sure people know Steam Database, a website that tracks metadata for games on Steam, including price tracking for deals, price history, that kind of stuff. That's where I go when I want to see like, oh, when did Cyberpunk 2077 last go on sale? And how much did it go on sale for? And how often does it go on sale? I can find all that information there. I can find like all other little bits of metadata that Steam doesn't make very clear on their page. This is like SteamDB, like this third-party website tracks all that. So anyway, they flagged that a ton of incest and rape games have been removed. And on surface, again, Visa and MasterCard forcing Steam to remove rape games, incest games, probably sounds like a good thing. Not even getting into the kink shaming of it, though. And Girl Gamers surprised me as a subreddit. This is why I think they're like true allies, because pretty much everyone there was like, sure, we hate these games as much as anyone else. We hate that they, endorse misogyny and all kinds of other stuff. But like, they were like, no, this is censorship. This is bad. Like this is a slippery slope. Because if you can remove incest games and you can remove rape games, what else are you going to remove? Like, this is just the start, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's like the big thing for me when this kind of stuff comes up. It's, censorship then relies on, there needs to be definitions for things. Okay, so what's being defined? Is it an adult-only game, adult-only content? What's the definition? And it's almost always ambiguous. And especially when, the powers at be that have influenced Visa and MasterCard to lean in this direction, they have a... Project 2025, they have outlined everything that they have decided is synonymous with, adult only or explicit or pornographic. And unfortunately, they're very explicit. This isn't like us guessing. This isn't like, people, thinking like, oh, we need to get ahead of this before we get in trouble. No, Project 2025 explicitly identifies queer identities, trans identities, as pornographic, perverse. Like it uses this language already. So yeah, whenever censorship comes up, they usually start with, protect the kids, or, like the, rape and incest games. And it's like, yes, it's still like yes and thing, right? Like we don't like those, but we know that our identities have been put in the same buckets that those have been. So it's, yeah.
Yeah. This comes from a little bit further down my show notes in case either of you are following along here, but I did find, I didn't want to look up Project 2025 itself. I didn't want to go to that website. I didn't want to give them the clicks. I don't know if again, I don't know if I believe that a computer virus can happen from that website, but if I would have to take a shower after going to that website. But I did find another website that was talking about Project 2025. It's called the 19th. And they wrote, quote, Project 2025 equates being transgender, or, quote, adopting transgender ideology to pornography and declares that it should be outlawed. Under this plan, the federal government would enforce sex discrimination laws on, quote, biological binary meaning of sex, unquote, and educators and public librarians who spread the concept of being transgender would be registered as sex offenders. So we're going to come back to this a little bit later. But we've actually seen something similar happen on a different website a few years ago before, like under the Biden administration. I'm not saying, again, I'm not equating Biden with being the problem here, just that we've seen this happen because of Visa and Mastercard already. So in 2021, Visa and Mastercard forced OnlyFans to stop, quote, allowing sexually explicit content, unquote, and which is weird to me because that is part of the point. Like the basis of OnlyFans is not entirely sexual content, but like it's the majority of it is sexual content. Like it's porn, it's nudity, whether it's tasteful or not. Like that's what the site exists for. So it like, in case you're wondering, like, why are we letting payment providers dictate this content? Another thing happened in January this year, with OnlyFans and Visa and Mastercard. A whistleblower told the world that Visa and Mastercard did nothing to prevent payments through their services to OnlyFans creators who were distributing. Oh, this is where the child pornography. I knew I wrote. Sounds weird. I don't even like talking about child pornography. It creeps me, like gives me the heebie-jeebies. But I was like, well, it's all bad. But I was, it's like, all bad. It's all bad. Oh yeah, it's in the notes here. So OnlyFans creators who were distributing child sex abuse content, which is child pornography, with a more political. I don't know if this politically correct is the right word, but like a more political term for it, I guess. Anyway, so I guess because Visa and MasterCard, got called out for this, do you think they're a little more trigger happy now? Or do you think Trump is like bringing the hammer down? Like what's really going on behind the scenes? We don't know. Although I'm curious to hear what you both think about this, at least insofar as like what we just discussed with this OnlyFans incident. We're at a loss for words, in case anyone is listening and wondering why there's such a long pause. Cleo's like opening her mouth and then like closing it and then like pointing and being like, I don't, like it's like Cleo, you said before, like it's all bad. Like it's all bad.
It's literally bad all the way down. Like, not to go back to OnlyFans was built on, like, it got so big because of its adult content, and to have it stripped entirely because of this, I'm not sure if it was the only reason. I'm not overly familiar with everything that's happened, but then to see, from this, I somehow missed this in the show notes. Wow, God, I don't.
Yeah, and to see. Sorry if you were about to keep going. Okay. And to
please.
No, yeah.
Save
so
me.
To see that OnlyFans, came out with such a big, like we're putting down the hammer, we're taking care of all this, but to see that the main, like, one of the main items that they were supposedly cleaning up wasn't touched, that kind of like, like specifically the child sex abuse content wasn't touched, that kind of gives a little bit of context into maybe that was included in the definition as a sort of like sweeten the deal, make it sound like we're actually doing something good here, because if they don't even touch the child sex abuse content, then they're literally just catering to purity culture, to all of the things that have to do with the patriarchy and gender ideology, and just if they don't help the children, which is usually their biggest, thing that they parade, then that also kind of lends to credence for our concerns about queer games in Steam, because then if that the items that have the most credence, that have the most, you should get rid of those. If those aren't being touched, then they're putting all of this effort into doing something else. It's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. I had a point, I forgot it, but basically, it's always about, I think this is my point, it's always about they always say it's about protecting the kids, but they never actually fix the things that would actually protect the kids. They're like, taking away sex education in schools is apparently, again, I don't have a source for this. This is not one of the things I researched, but supposedly, learning about sex in school from a young age, right? As young as you possibly can to comprehend it. It gives kids who are being sexually abused the language to be able to explain to an adult, like, hey, this is happening to me. It's not just like, he touched me there. It's like, hey, this is what's going on here. And then suddenly, abusers can be dealt with accordingly. And by taking that like purity culture, taking that thing away from kids, that language and that accessibility to sexual education, suddenly makes kids more easier to abuse and easier to manipulate because they don't understand what's happening. Same with they removed sexually explicit content from OnlyFans. I don't think they actually did, because as far as I know, OnlyFans is still a very sex-heavy website. But I guess this was like marching orders, and it looked good in headlines, and so that's what happened in 2021. But the fact that you're right, they didn't remove the child sex abuse content says to me they're not actually here to protect kids, right? And even though all of this is about like making librarians sex offenders for distributing queer content or trans ideology, unquote. It's not about protecting the kids. It's about silencing a group of people that you don't like, and under the guise of, we're protecting the children. So Steam actually did respond to this incident when people found out that games had been deleted. And it's kind of a non-answer, but I'm going to read it anyway just to give you some context for how Steam really feels about this, because they were very indifferent. Quote, "We were recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and their related card network and banks. As a result, we are retiring those games from being sold on the Steam store because loss of payment methods would prevent customers from being able to purchase other titles and game content on Steam." So it sounds like Visa and Mastercard threatened to not support Steam, which would basically mean 90% of Steam, I imagine that's a made up number. I'm not sure if it's 90%, but the vast majority of their revenue comes from Visa and Mastercard, from people using those payment providers to buy games. I use my credit card to buy games on Steam sometimes if I don't have a gift card, right? So that's anyway, they said, "We are directly notifying developers of these games and issuing app credits should they have another game they'd like to distribute on Steam in the future." So that's how we know that it was Visa and Mastercard that kind of forced them to take action recently. Even though, and this has to be a recent change from Visa and Mastercard in their policies, because these games have been on Steam for forever. Since Steam's been around, there's been games that are quote unquote too explicit or too adult only. What is that even? It's adult only content, but they removed rape games. Are you telling me that anything with sex in it is also how much hentai and how many porn games that aren't rape or incest related are on Steam that are still on there now and not being deleted? And Visa and Mastercard don't have a problem with those, but they have a problem with the rape, and when they say it's rape content, and and they didn't say that, that's just what people have noted, but did they remove child sex abuse content that slipped through the cracks on Steam too? We don't know. And I'm too scared to look at any of these games and find out if there is child sex abuse content on there, because ugh. No.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Not the kind of research you want to be doing. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. To comment on this statement, it's really something they're doing just to protect themselves, because if they pick a side either way, they make enemies regardless. This is probably the safest option for them to come out with we're telling them they're going to get credits, but this likely was the safest option for them to continue doing business and not lose everything they have.
Right. Oh, sorry. Did you?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In a perfect world, in a vacuum, the amount of steps that have happened right now, perfect, great. Got rid of bad stuff. It looks like they've, fulfilled their deals with the people whose stuff they've removed. Great, but nothing exists in a vacuum. There's history that comes, and society that comes, and so this is definitely something that it doesn't feel right. And yeah, a better word, it doesn't feel right. And we've seen this with OnlyFans, we were just talking about, but we also see it, in America. I've seen a very slippery slope with this, because then it starts with it it's illegal to be trans in several states right now, with bathroom rules, with bathroom laws. It started, and it starts at something that is very easy, like innocuous sounding, something that sounds like to someone who's not educated. And like Zoe was talking about earlier, if you take away the education for kids or even adults, like if you take away the words and the knowledge and the information, and you just give them the propaganda, you just give them the fear, it's very easy to make, connections that are incorrect that lead with either, censorship or, purity culture, all of its buzzwords taking over and like actually doing actual harm.
Yeah. And as I also found this other source that specifically, I was very curious on the actual steps in the process of how, like, a book banning, for example, because it's the closest thing we've seen in history, and even recent history, is like deleting information off the website, off web pages, and like the government deleted a bunch of trans information on its own websites, and like HIV support, stuff like that. So in my modern era, though, we haven't really seen censorship of like TV shows and video games. The most we've seen with TV shows and movies was 20 years ago with 9/11, was some stuff was taken off the air for a bit. Most stuff eventually came back. Some stuff was permanently destroyed, like the Spider-Man on the Twin Towers teaser trailer. But like for the most part, like there hasn't been a censorship en masse outside of books and information. And again, it hasn't happened with video games yet, but basically censorship leads to the threat, like it threatens democracy, right? So it's one of the first steps to tyranny because it allows one small group of people to control the narrative over many, right? You take away that information, you take away the resources, you take away the entertainment, and you just feed them games with propaganda, for example, right? That's not happening yet, as far as we know, again, but it's a slippery slope. And then, again, like you take away that information and people can't challenge that information because they don't have the tools, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the information or the words to be able to do so. And then it also further isolates marginalized populations. In this case, the queer community, right? As we discussed before, children don't have the way to explain to people they trust that they're being abused because they don't understand what's happening. They just think, oh, an adult I trust is doing this to me, therefore it is okay. They don't know any better, right? Oh, an adult is telling me I'm not transgender. I don't know any better, right? I don't see these characters in my games. I don't see these characters in my TV shows. Yeah.
Looking at the show notes, I was reflecting on my life and how I've seen when I learned about queerness and like different identities and such, and quite legitimately, like not out of any sort of phobia. It was just the words weren't popular where I grew up, which was a small town. I didn't learn about queerness until my first day in first grade. I was on the bus and like two 8th graders were fighting, and one of them called the other one lesbian as a slur, as a derogatory. And I remember going home and asking my mom, and I was like, I don't know what that word is. And she explained it to me, and to her credit, she did pretty good, but it almost still had the connotation of a bad word. And I remember in first grade, I remember having the idea of being confused because I had a feeling that I was gay, but I was like, but I like boys. And I didn't have, gender wasn't a thing. So I didn't have the language. I didn't have anything. So like I didn't even think about it after that until much, much later in my life. For anyone who doesn't know, I transitioned well into my adulthood. And so all of this to say, like I wasn't surrounded by like, oh no, you can't be gay. Oh no, you can't be trans. Those words didn't even exist. They didn't even exist. And so censorship leading to that is, it feels like it's erasing quite a bit, and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Like anytime I kind of like approached that topic hypothetically with my parents, and my parents weren't like transphobic per se, but like I was having thoughts as a kid, and then my mom would like, we would see, maybe this person was a trans woman who didn't pass. Maybe this was a man in drag. We didn't know, right? But my mom, if so we saw any, non-passing trans women, for example, for argument's sake, let's call them non-passing trans women. I don't know their gender, but my mom would like turn to me and she would like pull me aside. She'd like grab me by the arm, just like not gently, but not firmly either. Like it wasn't violent, but she'd be like, "That's a man in a dress." It was like, "Oh, let's go out of our way to point this out." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So I understand that like I'm male. I want to be a woman, but I'm going to look like that. My mom makes fun of people that look like that. Therefore, I shouldn't do this." I didn't even know what the word transgender was. And when I finally did learn it, it was only in association with kids who like had figured it out at a young age. And I was like, oh, I guess I missed that mark. I wish I had, or I wish I was like them. And I wish I was transgender. Like there must be something to them that isn't. It wasn't until I literally went on Reddit one day and like someone said like, if you want to be a girl, you can just be a girl. And I was like, what? Like, where was this information 20 years ago? And yes, because like looking back on my life, and I even like pointed some of these signs out to my mom, like the signs were there, but I just didn't have the language. So like that does, and again, I'm not equating like repressed transition to child sex abuse, just that these are kind of in a similar ballpark of like needing the language to describe what is the trauma you are experiencing. And I do think like repressing your trans identity is a kind of trauma. It is not the same kind of trauma that one experiences with child sex abuse. Again, not equating these things in the same way, but we're likening them for understanding purposes. This podcast has never breached into such a dark topic before, so I hope I'm handling it okay. I don't know. But let's like tie this back to video games. So if Visa and Mastercard go down this slippery slope and they say, okay, like this week it's like rape and incest, right? It's like, okay, like right now it just looks like they're like taking care of misogynistic things, right? It's not, like next week they come back and say, okay, all hentai games have to go, anything with that. And let's say the week after that, and maybe that week is actually a month, whatever, like what have you, right? But like, let's say they come back and say, they're like, okay, anything with hand holding has to go, or kissing. We don't want kids seeing that. Or they decide like first step is like, oh, you gotta make sure that anything with physical intimacy of any kind, whether that's just kissing, holding hands, snuggling, like that's gotta be marked adult only. Or they say, hey, a law changes in the US and Trump finally says like, okay, all trans people are sex offenders now. Like if we're caught out in public and you don't pass or we clock you, and chances are they're going to clock butch lesbians more than they're going to clock actual trans women, because that seems to be what's happening in the bathrooms lately. But let's say that they're finally moving in that direction. And I say finally, like as in something that I'm scared of, not that I think is going to happen or that I hope is going to happen. But then Steam and Visa and MasterCard go, oh shit, okay, so any game with a trans character, it's got to get removed. Likely, they would probably mark that stuff adult only first and then remove it. So I guess I want to ask, what does hypothetical Steam that has no queer games, like let's say they do start removing queer games, because we know it starts with trans people, and we now Stonewall's removed bi people from the monument, right? It was trans people at first, but now it's bi people. And then so, right, first off it was LGB without the T, and now it's LG without the B. So like, we always knew that, they're just moving down the alphabet. Right? Next, it's going to probably be lesbians, and then men will be last because misogyny, if I had to guess. Anyway, so eventually, what I do see happening is like, if we liken this removal of games on Steam to everything else that's happening in society, eventually it'll be all queer games. So, like, is Steam going to remove the LGBT, like, our game's going to be forced to remove the LGBTQ plus tag? Is the tag even going to be available as an option? Right? I use that tag a lot to denote what games are queer, especially for the podcast. Will non-queer games that have queer creators, or even just developers who are lower down the ladder, will they also be removed? So before I have one more topic that's just below all these show notes that I'm sure you're both itching to get to, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this so far, either of you.
I wish I had more to give, because I'm trying to put my thoughts into words and they're not coming out. Like I should say, and then it's gone.
To be fair, I am steamrolling this a little bit, so I do apologize for that.
How could you on your own podcast? How
someone gets water on their break and she thinks she's invincible.
Right? Crazy. We need to mutiny
For
right
context,
now. You and me, Lloyd.
It's very
we got
complicated,
this.
kind of complicated for a quick explanation, but I'm in the process of moving, and it's very hard to get out of my bedroom right now. I have to like do like a roll over my bed, and my bed is also covered in stuff, so it's really hard to take like a mug of water over my bed to get out of my bedroom to go get more. And I ran out of water during our musical interlude break, and so anyway, that's what they're talking about. They're both talking about right now. So anyway, Lloyd, did you have any thoughts? Not on the water thing.
Yeah, I was when you were talking about hypotheticals, like what could next steps be? In the sequence of events, the timeline, and I think is more realistic is I think they're going to mark anything LGBTQ as mature. They're going to do that first. I think that's what ends up happening. Mm-hmm. I think they quite honestly, I think they're going to not avoid, but just not even see the need to censor any perceptively cisnormative intimacy. I think they're not going to see any interest in policing handholding or relationships or parents, just the fact that there are two parents standing there not doing anything. If they are perceived, male, female, if they're perceived, the 2.5 kids picket fence house, like they could do most things, and I don't think they'll ever mark that as mature or adult. I think more likely we're going to see the existence of two moms that automatically makes a game mature, even if it's like they're not even like doing anything, mm-hmm. They're not even like hugging or anything. That's where that's where I'm feeling in my bones, but I don't have science for it.
I mean, so that actually, and I hope I'm not cutting Cleo off. I'll just check in with you before I
was going to kind of continue on with what Lloyd was saying, in that we're probably not going to see any changes happen to heteronormativity in terms of what we see on Steam. But if they were to make changes, like you said, Lloyd, segregate it into mature and then probably eventually hide it. If, it goes the way they want, those people putting pressure on these companies, they'll probably eventually, if they should bend the knee, remove it all and just leave the stuff that promotes, like you said, the husband, wife, 2.5 kids, white picket fence, normal life, which is how I'm seeing it going. We're not living in the cool cyberpunk dystopia. Yeah. We're living in the bad one.
Yeah. So, this is a good, both of what you said, what you both said was a good segue into my next point, because Lloyd, you mentioned that, two moms holding hands, like they're not even doing anything, right? Like, or they're, they just exist, like two lesbians are together, they exist, that's it. It's almost like a background element. It made me think of the game Unpacking, which is very much like there's some details in the game that might be explicit, like there's some underwear, but like explicit, I'm putting it in air quotes, but like there's like implication of like relationships in that game through the objects that you're packing and unpacking, but realistically there's not too much actual like traditional storytelling in that game. And spoilers for the end of Unpacking. So if you don't want Unpacking spoiled, skip ahead. I want to say 30 seconds because I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But at the end of the game, you find out that the main character whose life you've been unpacking has come out as a lesbian. And it flash forward to the end, like later in her life, and it's her and another woman sitting and watching the sunset. I think they're holding hands, but they're definitely sitting at like a table in their backyard of the house you just unpacked. So it made... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like language police, but I don't know if they're lesbian. They could be bisexual. I'm not sure. I don't,
That's true. But they're I guess I should say they're a women-loving women couple in this scenario. Like it's a sapphic relationship that they're in. Like it's two women. But yeah, they could be bisexual. It's never clear in the game because the character does date men throughout the story. But at a certain point, it goes from men to women and doesn't flip-flop after that. So in my head, it was just like a woman repressing her sexuality. But anyway, that's like a whole other discussion. We should do an episode on like, is the Unpacking character bi or a lesbian? But it also made me think, clear what you said is like, what if they do start deleting games, like games with the LGBTQ plus tag, games with queer content in it, whether it's marked or not? Like, I wrote a list of games that are going to be deleted or censored, right? So anyway, if in case anyone's wondering, like, like this nebulous idea of queer content. Like, let's name some games, okay? Because it's not just unpacking. You've got Baldur's Gate 3. You've got Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. You've got Cyberpunk 2077, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Life is Strange, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Stardew Valley, Celeste, Hades, Horizon Forbidden West, Fallout New Vegas, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, The Outer Worlds, Divinity 2 Original Sin, Night in the Woods, Gone Home, Miska Tiny Tale, Quantum Witch, Quality Dreams Reasonably Priced, Psychroma, and, while I was writing this list, I was thinking, like, okay, some of these games I'm mentioning because we've talked about them on the podcast, especially the last 4 that I mentioned. But I was thinking, like, if they start censoring Steam, and especially, like, all these platform providers are, like, in the US, right? And I'm not sure where my hosting provider is for this podcast, but, like, would this podcast get deleted because it's hosted on an American website? So I was just, like, it just got me wondering, like, where does this line get drawn? And on a slippery slope, the line does not exist. So... anyway, in case you were wondering, like, yes, so these are all queer games that could get deleted from Steam. And you're probably thinking, well, okay, but a lot of these games are multi-plat. There's other PC websites. There's Epic Game Store. There's itch.io, or itch.io. I was once called a fed for saying IO, but it's like IO, like a power button, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's the Nintendo Switch. There's a Nintendo Switch, right? There's the eShop. There's the PlayStation Store. There's Xbox. There's Good Old Games. Some people call it GOG. Or GOG. I'm not sure. I call it GOG. Because I guess I'm a fed. Anyway, a lot of these games are on those platforms, right? A lot of these games you can access, most of these queer games you can access somewhere else. Not all of them. Some of them might be deleted forever. Especially if the devs don't have a backup of it, or, Anyway, we're getting in the weeds. But here's the thing about these other platforms, okay? These other platforms, guess what payment providers they also use? Payment processors. They use Visa, they use MasterCard, they use American Express, right? Some don't use American Express, but most of them use Visa and MasterCard. Like, they're like standard. In terms of payments, like, it's like air, right? It's air and water. You don't have payments without those two options. So, and I know, again, I'm steamrolling this, but I did, like, while I was writing these show notes, I kind of went ham, like, journalist mode. So I just want to say, first off, Nintendo and PlayStation, they're already known to censor and limit what can be published on their stores. I know when I was talking to another dev, they said that it was hard to get their games on PlayStation because PlayStation is very selective about queer content that's not even explicit. Nintendo has also historically censored stuff. Actually, less so than PlayStation, believe it or not, but Doki Doki Literature Club on PlayStation is actually missing a scene, I think, on PlayStation only, whereas on a Nintendo, that scene is available, but it's considered too explicit, so PlayStation forced the devs to cut that content. Again, all this content might not be available in certain places. So, I mean, again, Nintendo and PlayStation, Visa and MasterCard could come to them and say, hey, you got to delete this stuff or we're not working with you. And you're probably thinking, well, Nintendo, and I guess by proxy PlayStation as well, though PlayStation I think is based in the US now, whereas Sony proper is in Japan, but Nintendo's a Japanese company. Sure, yes, Nintendo is a Japanese company. They don't have to bow to Trump if they don't want to, but their American branch is as big as their Japanese branch. Like, their market, the US market is, and for, like, most of these platforms, bigger than Japan. It's the biggest market in the world. It's where all these games, all these platforms make most of their money. Yes, the rest of the world combined might get close to equaling to the US's income for these platforms. But, like, the US is just like a monopoly in comparison. Like, Canada, we're like a tiny drop in the bucket compared to the US. And we feel that here all the time with the way we're treated with, like, merch and other things too. So, like, we only got Pokemon, for example, we only got Pokemon Center here in Canada through the website like a couple of years ago, whereas in the US it was like the last 15 years. Anyway. That's my TED Talk. I will now let you both speak. I'm so sorry.
Finger snaps.
We love your TED Talk.
I bowed.
This censorship stuff isn't... You see it more so in other regions as well. If you were to pull some of those games in from Nintendo and PlayStation and just compare them to what's in other regions... I think you may see what, maybe that's what they want in the end. I think it's China, like the Chinese market specifically, it's very heavily censored in terms of LGBTQ content. And I'm wondering if part of my brain is thinking if that's what they're going towards in terms of like this purity, words word vomit. This purity that they want to see, is that something they're going to lean towards in terms of policing this content? Like, oh yeah, you can have the game, but not in this way. We want it like this. It's something I kind of comes up in my mind now and then, and it's just reading the show notes. It's like, is that kind of what they want? Is that in the end? Is that their end goal? To censor it, not just straight up remove, but just censor it and patch it out, and hey, you can keep it up, but here's what you got to get rid of.
Yeah, and not to bring up the thing I bring up every other episode, but like physical versus digital media. Like, this is like a really huge another instance where I'm like, shit, digital media, you know, with a button, with a, you know, a script, with a whatever, they can remove whatever they want, whether it's a whole game or, you know, Game of Thrones, the coffee cup, that was gone within like no time. Tell us in the comments if you know how long it took, but like they like Thanos that immediately, and that was because it was digital and they had control over it and they could change it.
Did you say they Thanos'd it immediately?
I regretted it.
I just want to make sure that's what you said. I'm not making fun of you. I just was like, did I hear that correctly? Just like snap it away.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said it. I was like, you're really cool, Lloyd. Keep going. And
no, it is cool. I just wanted to be clear. Like, it kind of like, it almost sounded like your voice dipped quiet, as if you were like, you knew you were saying was kind of silly, and you like made your voice a little bit quieter in the hopes we wouldn't notice.
But we both noticed it immediately. But Zoe's the one who called you out on it. I was being polite. But now that you've been called out on it,
yeah, it was just right in half, and made the scene more impactful.
The Steam games are finite. The resources on Steam are finite. We have to remove half of all Steam games. But this time when I snap, I won't be, you know, what does Thanos say? He says something like, dispassionate, fair. Yeah, he says inevitable. But he says it's dispassionate and fair. It's like, I'm not discriminating.
At the end.
Whereas I think, you know, Trump is, you know, Trumpos is gonna, you know, snap all the LGBTQ sex games. Those are not the same thing. It's just like LGBTQ and sex gone. So we were talking about like, where does it stop though? Because that was like kind of my last point in like the show notes, is like, where does this stop? You were like saying like, does it stop with like censoring content? Does it stop with deleting content? And like the doomer in me says like, this goes way beyond content. This goes way beyond content. This reaches public life. And then this is like one of the first steps. Like, we know in Nazi, and again, I've like trigger a content warning on all this, but like Nazi Germany famously burned down all the research, books, data, the entire institute. I forget what it was, but it was like a sex research institute, and it was the only place doing like queer affirming care in the world at the time, and yes. Hitler burned it all down. And so deleting digital content is like, in some ways, like, yes, like if it's gone, it's got DRM, like they can easily take it away from you, but also it's a lot harder to delete something digitally if people want to preserve it, because like digital files are easily duplicated. It's harder to burn it down. Things are more globalized now, so things kind of go wherever, although you'd be surprised how much lost media happens. So if stuff did get deleted, there would be stuff that fell through the cracks, but this is a modern day book burning.
Yes.
And we saw with Nazi Germany, and again, I don't want to alarm anyone, but I do think that's the direction things are headed. Mm-hmm. Or at least that I'm concerned they are headed. And then so we saw with Nazi Germany, I think that book burning for that Sex Research Institute was like in 1933. And as we know, this lasted until 1945 and just kind of went beyond that, because it didn't suddenly... They kept all the gay people that were in prison in the camps in Nazi Germany. You know, when those camps were liberated, they famously kept gay people in prison after that. They were not liberated in the same way. Like, they were taken out of those camps, but then they were incarcerated elsewhere. So, and again, I'm not like, we're really projecting here, but like, I don't think this ends with like deleting queer games on Steam. I think this goes beyond that. It goes beyond Nintendo. Like, it goes... Anyway.
It starts with Steam, and then Steam rolls into other forms of media. It starts with games, and then it goes to movies. I think books have already been impacted, but even more so, it will probably only get worse from here.
Is that why they're starting with Steam? Because they can use the pun steamroll?
We're bullying everybody.
I said it, and now I have to leave and never come back. This is my first and last episode.
No,
I'm just going to sink down here.
I have Roy and Akami trapped in the shadow realm for podcast recordings. You're stuck there too.
I heard you say it.
Oh no.
And I was like, we're going to bully her.
It's my fault. I'm a bad podcaster. I'm the one who's bullying everyone. To be honest, I like the puns. I actually appreciate all these things, but I want to make sure I heard it.
No, you heard it, and I hate it here. I'm leaving. But to get back to it, I don't think it ends with just Steam. I think it, like you mentioned earlier, it goes through to the other platforms, Epic, GOG, Good Old Games, because I'm not a heathen. And itch.io, I will never call it itch.io.
Oh, thankfully. Okay, you and I can go up against Ekami, because she's the one who calls us feds.
Well, I think she's a fed. You can tell her I said that.
She'll probably listen to this episode and hear it.
You can tell her we're on together.
But I don't think it just stops here. I think this is a gradual build-up to be something bigger, and Steam is just the forefront of it.
Lloyd, as someone who lives in, I know you're about to speak to, but I kind of want to preface, like, as someone who lives in the US, like, what's your vibe check on this and like just everything in general? Like, I'm curious because like we're Canadian, we are a little bit removed from it. Although to be honest, it's like watching our neighbor's house burn down.
Oh yeah,
but still.
My vibe check on this is par for the course. This is everything I'm seeing in America. This is not a jump of logic. Like, I'm not like, I know earlier you were like, it sounds like the sky is falling. Having been like since January to now, in July of 2025, every single day has been a new thing that we've been like, oh, we didn't know they could do that. They can't technically, but they do it anyway. And so, we talked about Stonewall. For some reason, it won't let me move on without saying it. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a really historical location in the United States. Riots, it's a huge, they call it a riot, but Lloyd, slow down. Too much information is trying to happen at once. It's just a very historically meaningful location for trans community, queer history. It's just very important. And so to literally see erasure physically on the signs and digitally online, this is not a jump of logic what we're thinking might happen here. And especially if the pressure on the payment from the payment companies is coming from American pressure. I've seen erasure on the federal level on government websites. Schools have been like, classes can't be, gender studies in colleges are cutting all of that. They're cutting everything. On the elementary level, teachers are not allowed to have anything up. They're not allowed to talk about Pride Month, not allowed to talk about anything. So I'm seeing this happen, like in person, in real life here. And so this is not a jump of logic, especially if the catalyst for this are American interests. So yeah, that's my little spiel.
That's fair. Well, I think we're preaching to the choir here. I think most listeners are probably tuning into this episode right now, whether they're from the Girl Gamer subreddit or they're regular listeners or just people interested in queer gaming. Like, I'm sure the temperature check is the same from everyone. So let's move on to a happier topic. And I appreciate you both sitting with me through this and like bearing with me while we get through this, because I know it's been very heavy. But let's talk about something happier, and let's do Queer Game of the Week. Cleo, this is your week to bring a game, and you have brought a game that I've actually played. So we only have a couple minutes, but please give me the rundown. Sorry to rush you.
No, it's fine. I've been playing Tell Me Why, a game produced by Don't Nod, published by, I don't remember now by who. Came out in 2020. Was it Microsoft? It was Microsoft because I think it's on Game Pass. I think you're right. But I have been playing through that. I just finished episode 2 and I got like an hour into episode 3 last night before I had to go to bed. It was like 2 a.m. If I didn't have to be here or at my D&D game earlier today, I would have been up until 4 a.m. playing it because it is such a compelling mystery and I love the characters and it has been such a fun adventure game to play. I've always loved those kinds of games. So playing this one, which I completely missed at launch, it has been a lot of fun to dig into something that feels a little bit different to other kinds of games. It follows sorry, were you gonna?
No, I was actually gonna prompt you and just ask like, what's the premise of the game to tell us that.
It follows Allison and Tyler, sib twins who have been separated for a decade and they reunite in their adult years. Tyler is a transgender man who you don't find this out until later, sent to Fireweed, a residential center for youth at need youths. They come together to pack up their mother's home. She's passed in mysterious circumstances, and they've come together to sell the home, throw things out, and reconcile with each other and with the town. He was a different person when he left, and he's come back as someone completely new. And seeing their reactions to him and his presence, their interactions with the town itself, it feels very similar to what I've gone through. People who've known me before and have met me now look at me and go, wait, oh, and they treat you very differently. And playing through this as Allison in one episode, Tyler the next, kind of seeing it from both perspectives, it's very interesting. It's very fun. The story is very compelling. The characters are great. I know some people don't like it. I think it's got like a 7 out of 10 general review, but I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the world. I fell in love with the characters. They have, I think it's in some part of my head, I think this was supposed to be another, oh my goodness, what is
Life is Strange?
Life is Strange. I want to say that this was supposed to be a Life is Strange kind of game because they have a power. They can share, like they can view each other like shared memories and communicate telepathically due to some shared trauma, which is revealed at the end of episode 1. And it has been very interesting to see how their perspectives differ in certain events. Like, oh no, this argument happened like this. It wasn't as angry as you remember it. And you can kind of pick and choose how they played out, and that kind of affects your relationship with the world.
Lloyd, when we brought up Tell Me Why, or when Cleo brought up Tell Me Why, you kind of did like is this something you've played?
It's not something I've played, and how do I say this? The Life is Strange games and Tell Me Why, I have accepted I probably won't play. I've heard they're phenomenal games. I've seen some gameplay, they're phenomenal. They just do stuff with trauma that I don't look for in video games. Just to
fair.
put it simply. But I do recognize that they're really well done media.
That's totally fair. Yeah. No, like that's, yeah. I mean, yeah. And I actually think I've never thought of it as like, I've always known like it felt like a Life is Strange game, but I've never thought until this moment when you said like maybe it was intended, Cleo, to be a Life is Strange game. Like maybe because Square Enix had the license and the rights to that, they were like, we want to make this story. It would have been a Life is Strange, but we really don't want to work with Square Enix anymore. And I don't think they ever have since, because Life is Strange games now are made by Deck 9, Square Enix, and they have never collaborated, Don't Nod and Square Enix ever since. And actually, if you like Tell Me Why, they just released Lost Records Bloom and Rage, which I will say is not their strongest. But if you want more of that kind of vibe, it is a game you could play. It's just a little bit long in the tooth. They get a little into the weeds before anything of interest actually happens towards the second episode. It's actually 2 halves. Part 1 is Bloom, second part is Rage. But I did play Tell Me Why a few years ago, and they've given it away free every Pride month, I think. I don't know if they did this year, but I know in previous Pride years they've given away Tell Me Why for Pride month for free.
I don't know if they've given it the full thing away, but I know episode 1 has been free perpetually. I'm not sure if I didn't see it. I picked it up for like $7 on sale.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not available outside of PC or Xbox, and that's why I think it's a Microsoft published game, is because it's only available on those consoles, and it's never come to even PlayStation. Like, I know Don't Nod really does not like working with Nintendo. In fact, it wasn't until much later that the Life is Strange games came to Nintendo, but you'd expect this game to at least be on PlayStation, but it is just on Xbox and PC. But it is a fantastic game. It was the first kind of content I played that or experienced that was from the perspective of a trans man after I transitioned. And I was like, am I going to relate to this? And to be honest, like, a lot of the experiences are the same, just like inverted. Like, obviously, yeah, I can't relate to like wanting to be masculine, but I can relate to like not wanting the experience of your, birth gender, for example. So I think, like, if you go into it not thinking too much about like, oh, I'm playing as a man right now, and just thinking about like, I'm experiencing a trans person's life right now, you're going to find a lot to relate to. And the fact that both Cleo and I are trans women, and we both experienced it and enjoyed it. In fact, I would be like, normally I'd be like, Lloyd, you should play this game because it's like a great trans masculine representation story. But you're right, the trauma in this and all of those games are too deep. But that is all the time we have for today's episode. Cleo, I want to thank you for joining us for the first ever episode, and thank you for getting through it and for putting up with me making fun of you.
I'm never coming back. This is my first and last. Avitas and goodbye.
To the Shadow Realm with you. You'll be back next week. And Lloyd, I also want to thank you for putting up with me making fun of you and calling you out on the Thanos thing, but all in good fun, and thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me. It was nice meeting you, Cleo.
It was nice to meet you as well.
Thanks to your avatars for joining me for another episode of your Queer Video Game Podcast. If you've made it this far into the episode, I really appreciate you taking the time to support queer-made content. If you want to support the show, it would be really great if you could leave a rating, review, or comment on your preferred podcast platform. I welcome you to check out the website trueavatarspodcast.com, all one word. That's trueavatarspodcast.com. You can also find the show on Blue Sky, Threads, and YouTube under the handle @trueavatars, all one word, and on Instagram under trueavatars. Importantly, if you or anyone you know is queer and involved with video games in some way, please don't be shy. I would love to hear from more queer voices in video games. Your voice is unique and valid and worth sharing with the world. And if you don't want to be on the show or know anyone who's interested, but you know about a cool queer video game or a games industry story that's queer related, please let me know. The show's official email is trueavatars.podcast@gmail.com. That's trueavatars.podcast@gmail.com. You can also feel free to reach out via the website or the aforementioned social media pages. Things are tough out there, and queer people need to stick together when we can. Bye, True Avatars. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all again next week. Take care and stay safe.